Thank you so much to the English as a second language students, to the students, and of course to the organizers to give me the chance to be here explaining the concepts of these two strategies that you can apply in your classroom. I would like to start with this concept that is engagement. Have you ever had troubles with your students to engage them in your class or in the topic that you are giving them? I bet of course you are, right? All of us have had struggles to motivate them. So I would like to introduce this guy, Andrew Marshewski. He says, engagement, the difference between I have to do this and I want to do this. This is an example of how you as teacher can motivate your students. So instead of forcing them to learn grammar, language grammar, or an English topic, you have to motivate them through an activity that will be fun and entertaining for them. So don't forget this guide because we are going to be using some of his point of view. Okay, Andrew. So now we are here to know more about these two strategies, gamification and game-based learning. We are the purpose of this conference is to explore the difference between them, because probably we have applied this kind of activities, but we don't know exactly what is the difference between gamification and game-based learning. So let's start with this topic. We have here a short agenda. I'm going to start with the introduction, the concept of gamification, and then game-based learning. And of course, I'm going to give you some advice to effective gamified lessons and current applications that some teachers have applied already, not only here in Mexico, but also in another countries, and the conclusion. First of all, I want to start with a game. The name is Red Ball. The red ball I have here, a red ball, and we have there the rules. First rule is answer Steffi's question. That's the first rule. I'm going to ask you something, and you get a point by every correct answer. Okay? And I'm going to say if you are correct or not. Okay? So trying to convince me if you are correct or not. So pay attention on the ball because probably you are going to get it in your hands. Are you ready? Yeah. What's that? Chair. What's the thing you have in your hands? What's that? A ball. Excellent. Show me back a ball. A ball. You can't repeat that word. Okay? Are you ready? What's that?
It's a red heart.
Excellent. Very good. Nice. Are you ready? Are you paying attention? Yes. Okay. Oops, what happened? You're paying attention. Okay. What can you do with the ball? Where's it? Okay, very good. Okay, very good. Next, over there. What can you do with the ball? Play. Excellent. Excellent. Very good. And the last one. Over there, they are writing something. And the last one. There, that guy. What can you do with the ball? With a toy? With a toy. Yeah.
Break it.
Break it. Okay, it's not good. It's the material, but probably you can break it. Excellent. So as you can see, you already told me different actions that you can do with this thing, a red ball. Right? Very good. So what's next? What am I doing this? Okay. So before to explain you again, gamification and game-based learning, you have to know these three concepts: play, toys, or tools, and games. Okay? What is play? We know, of course, as English teachers, it's a verb, right? It's an action. It's exactly what we have done a moment ago. It doesn't need a defined goal. It's just for fun, okay? To get entertaining. It's a way of exploring, okay? Probably you have played with your friends or with your kids if you have children to explore their environment, okay? Maybe because you are boring, but you don't need anything else. You don't have an explicit goal. Maybe you are doing it just because it's fun and because, one more time, you are in a boring moment, right? And you don't need anything. For example, we have here the first picture of very known game activity, right? Rock, scissors, paper. And during this activity, probably the kids are just like, oh yeah, rocks are stronger than scissors, or scissors can kill the paper, right? And it's fun. In the other picture, you can see a kid who's running around a field, around probably his garden, right? And maybe he is imitating an animal that probably could, in his imagination, this animal is in a forest, in a jungle, but he's playing just with his imagination, his body. He doesn't need anything else, okay? Okay. The second concept, toys. Or now that we have technology, we have even tools that can help us to play, and we can get more entertained with this, combining play and toys, like we did before with the ball, okay? With this tool, we were playing with this toy, right? Of course, these objects, they are going to have their implicit rules. For example, our friend told us, I can break the ball. Yeah, probably, but the ball has implicit rules. What kind of rules? You can throw it because of its material. It's possible. You can bounce it, right? It's possible. You can roll it like this. Okay, we had a problem there when I throw the ball to the girl, but you can roll it, right? Implicit rules that are not imposed by other people or not imposed by the players, okay? But what happens if you have a car in another hand? Can you throw it? Of course you can, but it's gonna break. Yeah, of course you can, but your kid is gonna be like, no, mom, no, please, not my car, right? Can you roll it? Let me go back before. Can you roll the car? Oh, sorry. It's not possible, right? Hold on. I'm getting so before. Sorry, going beyond the presentation. Okay. Can you roll the car? Yes, you can roll it because it has wheels. It's possible. The implicit rules of this toy are different than a ball. Again, what kind of implicit rules? You can't throw it because if you throw it, the material is very, very sensible maybe, and it's gonna break, right? So these kind of objects will obey another different rules. One more time, they are not imposed by players. They are naturally of them, part of them. Okay. Now let's go with the next concept, that is games. Games, they are the full activity. You can use more than a toy, okay? And what another thing is part of the games? Explicit goals. In this case, the players, of course, they will organize some rules that they have to follow to achieve a goal, okay? For example, if you get the highest score of of 5 teams, you are going to be the winner because you follow the specific rules that they imposed since the beginning of the game, right? So we have here 3 people, and each of them give different concepts of games. For example, number 1, Sid Meier. Sid Meier says, games, they are a series of meaningful choices. It's a kind of weird because probably we have done a lot of meaningful choices during our life, and life is not a game. So it's a kind of weird for me. It's incomplete. Then we have the second concept by G. Scale. He says, a game is a problem-solving activity approached with a playful attitude. It makes more sense, right? You give to a team a problem and they have to give a solution, but playing, okay, trying to enjoy the solution and to get to the goal, that is to solve that problem. And the last concept given by Amy Jo Kim. Amy Jo Kim, she says, games are a structured experience with rules and goals that is fun. She is given more details on this concept. A structured experience to achieve goals. From my point of view, this is the best concept because she's giving more specific details to games concept. That is rules and goals to achieve. Rules and they can help you to achieve the goals. Okay? So what's then? Besides this concept, it's very important that you consider the context. Since the first step that we gave here to NECA, they are giving us the concept of this seminar, education. So gamification and game-based learning are strategies that you can apply in business, manufacturing, designing, industry, and education. We are going to focus the education applications, right? The context is crucial. And considering the context, we have 4 quarters. These 4 quarters contain explicit rules, implicit rules, chaos, and control. Each quarter has specific characteristics. For example, if you give an activity or just, let's think just a toy, okay, to a classroom, and they are playing with a toy but just with the implicit rules that the object contains, probably it's going to generate a chaos, okay, because they are going to, most of them are going to feel like they are boring, and they are going to start to use the toy like just throw it to anywhere without caring others. So you are going to have probably some students that are so shy and they are feel depressed, they are going to feel fear, so it's going to be chaotic. And then the second quarter, chaos with explicit rules. Of course, you are going to give them the rules of the game to your students, but probably they are not going to understand correctly those rules. And what's going to happen? Okay, let's gonna play just how I just understand what I think is the correct rule. So it's gonna be like a jungle inside the classroom. Okay. Then we have another part, the number 3, explicit rules and control, where the students understand correctly the instructions that you give, okay, in the classroom. And then you are going to have more organization, and they are going to feel more comfortable and confident while they learn something. In this case, English. And in 4th quarter, you have implicit rules and control of the situation of the class, because everything is working correctly. The explicit rules, they understand everything right. The implicit rules, you don't need to explain like, yeah, the ball can bounce, you can throw it. It's natural. You don't have to explain it. The chaos, well, your chaos is not going to exist. Everything is going to be under control. And everything is going to be working artistically, right? Wonderfully, because everything is learning correctly, right? And the self-expressions of the students are going to be under control, under your goals. Okay? So, okay. The context of an ESL class, remember, grammar goals, in our context to apply these two strategies. First, grammar goals, skill goals. What are those skill goals? Speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And of course, don't forget the planning goals. Maybe you can apply an activity that could be very interesting for them, but if you are not developing that activity according to the planning goals, maybe your organization is not going to be so happy, right? Because you are not working alone, you are in teams, okay, at the same time. So that is your context to apply these two strategies. Besides, before to go further, okay, to this concept, these strategies, at the same time you have to combine learning styles of your students. These learning styles, what kind of characteristics include? Cognitive features, affective features, and physiological features. The cognitive features is the way they can solve a problem, the techniques that they apply, and the critical thinking to solve that problem. Right? Then the affective attitudes, how this activity motivates my class, how this activity really engages my students, and if they are really understanding what I am saying. Okay? Affective futures. And physiological futures, the sensory preferences. If you have students that love to play violin, they are very active, they love to play sports, well, you have to identify those futures in your students to know how to develop an activity according to gamification and game-based learning. Okay? Now that you have all this context, what you have to research before to apply gamification and game-based learning, all the context. Now let's continue with the first strategy, gamification. The first guy to give a concept was Sebastian Berterkins in 2011, and he said, gamification is the use of game design elements in a non-game context. But he was talking about any kind of context. One more time, special business, programming, industry. And then Kevin Werbach in 2014, he said, gamification is the process of making activities more game-like. And what is involved in all these two concepts? Fun, to get engagement in the people. One more time, their context is very different than us. But we already know as teachers what we have to consider to develop and apply this activity with our students. Okay? Then, the most recent concept is given by Andrew Smarszewski, the guy that you met before at the beginning of the conference. He has given this concept last year, actually, and he said, gamification is the use of concepts and elements that make games engaging and enjoyable in the other areas of work or life in general, right? That's gamification. And I really like this concept because this guy is a programmer. Yeah, he's a programmer. As you can see, his career is very different than actually he is doing right now. But now he's involved in business, in education, even because this strategy is very applied at schools. So this concept gives us like the general characteristic of gamification. So, how could you apply gamification if your class doesn't help to engage students? Well, you can develop some dynamics, okay? Or actually, they say you can apply game mechanics to get motivated with your students while they learn English. If, for example, in this picture, well, I have some students of different ages, and of course we work with some bibliography, some books, but the typical activity is Complete these sentences in the correct order and with the correct time of the verbs, and so on. Okay, let's do it in our books. Perfect. Let's write. I give you 5 minutes. Okay. Perfect. Excellent. I did it, but most of them are like, no, sorry, I haven't finished, and they are gossiping there in the corner of the classroom. Some of them are like fighting, and you are just turn around, and if you turn back, they are screaming and yelling, and it's like, what can I do? I don't want that to happen in the class. Okay, so let's add and this another toys, another tools. For example, we have here some tools. They are letters that instead of just answering the book, you give the instruction. Okay, guys, let's go to work in teams. And the first team that complete 5 sentences in 5 minutes is going to be the winner. Okay, and besides that, you are going to be in the leaderboard. Okay, perfect. So they are like, oh, yeah, I want to play. And it's more interesting and engaging for them. What can you use during this gamification? I bet this kind of tools are very applied by you, by most of us, to give extra points, to give them badges, to register this information in leaderboards, to let them know who's the best. That's the concept of gamification. To organize a specific material to entertain the students. Okay? That's an activity that we have done before, but that we didn't know that the name is gamification. I'm going to give you more details because it's not only that part. That's only a section of gamification. Okay? So, the example that I was talking about is for A1 and A2 levels of English, where they get motivation through this, right? You can give them these materials so they start to work together, to communicate each other. Probably this level is not going to speak so well, but they are already trying to apply the lessons they are learning in the classroom. We have a leaderboard, but speaking personally, I don't recommend apply the leaderboard in like young ages, because I could realize with some students that they lose confidence if they notice that they are in a competition. Most of them are the shy students. So you have to know your students. You have to identify those physiological features, well, personality features, right? To know what kind of activity they like. Another example of gamification, that one is very known by all of us, okay? For B1 and B2 levels to work in teams. And in this case, you give them a lot of words that they can organize in the correct order. For example, applying the past perfect rule, present perfect, future perfect, phrasal verbs, and everything that they can learn in B1 and B2 level. But in this case, you give them time to work faster. Because if you don't give time, they can spend the full class and get lost in the activity that they are doing. So it's better to apply time, and don't forget to motivate with the leaderboard. Okay, it's important that they can see their advancement, and of course you can apply that feedback at the end of this kind of games, right? And one more time, considering always the planning goals. All the time with the planning goals, and also the area where you are teaching English, right? What are the benefits of gamification? One more time, increase motivation. The students are going to get more motivated to learn a specific lesson, okay? Skill development. As I was telling you, if they are in basic level, probably they are not going to communicate correctly yet with the rest of their classmates, but they are gonna try it and they are gonna feel like they want to be part of the activity. And collaborative learning. I am not sure if you have had some students or a class where you have students from Brazil, you have students from Japan, China, Mexico, of course. They speak very different language, but with this basic activity of gamification, they are going to start to try to communicate each other applying the basic rules of English. Because most of them, when you are in a globalized class, they are speaking their own language. And you tell them one and again, please speak English because it's unrespectful if you don't speak English. We speak a lot of languages. And they are like, okay, teacher, and they try. So this kind of strategy, gamification, help us to develop collaborative learning. Okay? So, let's go with the next one, that is a kind of a little bit different, game-based learning. So game-based learning is more entertaining for students. Why? Because you are applying new tools, new toys with the help of technology. Pre-designed games, they could be applications that you can download from the cell phone, from any other software. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and even artificial intelligence can help you to develop an activity with game-based learning. Of course, this strategy is suggested to be applied when you are reinforcing the student knowledge. It's not suggested if you are barely starting to give them the grammar tools, right? It's suggested to apply it once they feel more comfortable applying those rules in grammar. Okay. Also, you can apply points. You can give them badges. You can give them leaderboards, and we add level achieved. In the picture that we have there on the top of the screen, we have an example of augmented reality. You can download an application that helps you to see objects that are not part of our reality, right? For example, you have here the cell phone, and maybe there is no ball, but you are watching a ball, and you give instructions to the students to describe the figure that they are watching through the augmented reality application. In English, all the time. English, please. English. Oh, but I am watching it in Spanish. No. English. Okay, perfect. You got a point because you are trying it. Then the second picture, we have some students that they are applying house and garden vocabulary and prepositions of place, but with this virtual reality program, where they can walk in a virtual house. They are writing how the house is, where each room is located, next to what, okay, or behind which room, or how many doors, windows, etc. they can see, and they write. And once they write, they can speak, and they are more motivated and more involved in this immersive application of virtual reality. Nowadays, we have another schools in the United States and in Europe where they are applying this virtual reality headset, where instead of just watching through a screen, they already have this headset, and the activity is even more immersive because they feel like they are really there, but with help of this headset of virtual reality. But at the same time, you force them to describe what they are watching with this headset in English. Oh no, you are starting to speak Portuguese. No, I'm sorry, no English, you don't get the point, I'm sorry. Oh no, I heard you to speak Japanese, you don't get the point, I'm sorry. Another partner, another classmate, please, and so on. You force them to communicate as well but in another immersive activity using tools. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay. We have here the first page for basic levels. That is an application that you can download from Google Play. The name is Go Go Go. And you can search for a game called Treasure Hunt. Treasure Hunt is very useful because the cell phone, when you turn on an instruction in the cell phone in the device, you start to hear a sound like mac, 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 that kind of sound. And you hide it. You hide the device, and the students are gonna be like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 meters from the device, and you give them instruction that every time that they give you a correct sentence in simple present, they are gonna be able to give a step in front of them towards the device. And the first guy that achieved this device, because they are answering correctly, they get the points, of course, and they are gonna be on the leadership board. And now the students are like, yeah, I want to play again. I didn't answer anything, but I want to try the next time, right? But they are motivated. This was the example that I was explaining you for A2 and B1, B2 levels of English, where you can apply these virtual reality programs. They are everywhere, actually. In this case, we were attending the prepositions of place and some house and garden vocabulary to describe this environment. But as I was telling you, I gave them the vocabulary and enough grammar rules to describe the scenes and these pictures. Otherwise, if they don't have enough tools, enough grammar tools, they are not going to be able to do this. Okay? So that's why it's very important that you can use this kind of activity to reinforce what they are learning with you. And for C1 and C2 levels, you can work with this application which name is Wordscapes. Wordscapes is an app that gives you 4 letters, for example, and you have to generate as many words as possible so you can advance in the levels. This tool is very useful because it increases the vocabulary, and they can you can give them this activity during class, or even as homework. Okay. And at the same time, you have to know how to apply this, because if you are like, oh, just play and that's it. No, it's not. That's not it. What else you have to require as teacher? Okay, you're gonna play, but let's practice while we are speaking, and try to give me some examples applying those new words that you are learning. Otherwise, it's not gonna have a goal. It's not gonna be clear for your round planning, right? It's very important that you can know how to apply this application with an objective of your class. Okay, it's not just not only to play and that's it. No. Something related to your plan. What are the benefits of game-based learning? Well, one more time, you are gonna give them, in this case, problem solving. Why problem solving? And why do we have here problem solving? And for example, we didn't have it in the gamification. Because game-based learning is, one more time, don't forget it, to reinforce those knowledge in the students. Okay? Because they have more grammar, their skills are better, okay? So they are just practicing and apply that knowledge in a problem to give a solution and to share it with the teacher, with the class. Okay? Experiential learning. They are more immersive experiences than where you go. With this kind of strategy, they get in an unforgettable activity, they get motivated, and I bet that they are going to be like, oh yes, I want to know what we are going to do the next class because the last one, no way, it was unforgettable for me and I learned a lot. But always related to goal-oriented. If you are applying a game just because it's fun, but you don't have clear what the objectives are for you as teacher and for your students, maybe you are gonna be a kind of lost during this lesson, okay? So it's important that you can make a research, right? To know your students, identify their needs, and how you can help them with these tools correctly, okay? Now that we have learned each strategy, let's identify the differences then. Gamification, incorporate some tools, some elements, such as points, learning scores, leader scores, scoreboards, badges, that can motivate students to improve, to be the best. The gamification, you can do these materials with your own material, okay? You can print them, okay? Not necessarily using the technology, okay? But of course, you can use like a ball, some games like table games, but they are different. Okay? And in comparison with game-based learning, they are necessarily pre-designed tools. What else? They are going to be more immersive, of course, but at the same time, this strategy is going to be only for particular concepts, right? Okay. Let's see some advantages. In the case of gamification, it's not as intrusive as game-based learning. Why not as intrusive? What I mean with this concept? Probably, of course, you're going to have cases of the students that are going to get lost using these technological tools. That's not, you can avoid it, okay? It's impossible to avoid that. So in this case, gamification tries to avoid those cases because you are just working directly between each other, right? And you don't have anything else interrupting their learning. And in comparison with game-based learning, okay, this is, you have technology, you have tools that probably the students are going to be engaged, but there are going to be some cases that you have to pay attention because maybe they are very, interactive, right? And of course they love to play, but they are not relating the activity with the grammar, with the class. Of course, another disadvantage is that you have to invest. These kind of tools are expensive, but they are very useful, okay? If you want to keep walking through technology applications, of course, you have to do a little bit of effort and invest in these tools. Now let's continue with the design of these effective lessons. If you are designing a lesson or an activity where you can apply gamification and game-based learning tools, the first thing is, one more time, identify your students' characteristics. How are they? What kind of personality they have? If it's gonna be fine if I apply scoreboards or not. If it's correct if I give them points individually, or it's better if they work in teams, right? You have to consider and describe what kind of changes you want to generate in those students. As English teachers, we always think, I want to give them confidence while they speak, while they write, while they listen. So you have to consider all those characteristics. You have to define the action, the activity, if you are going to use gamification or game-based learning. You have to define as well to visualize the results of engaging, right? If they are going to be really deep in the activity, diving into the activity, or they are just, just because they must be there, they really don't care. You have to observe a lot those kinds of attitudes as well. When you are, one more time, developing this kind of lessons, you have to consider the rules. If you think in the game that we were playing at the beginning, I gave you rules, right? There are three kinds of rules, the ones that we were talking before, the inherent rules that are part of the toy per se, and the system rules that they are given by the players. But then we have a third one, the meta rules. The meta rules are those that you don't even expect at the moment to develop an activity. Like, for example, let's think that we were playing again, I throw you the ball. But all of a student starts to cry because she or he feels nervous. I will be like, oh my gosh, he's crying. What I'm gonna do? That's a meta rule. What are you gonna do if a student starts to feel uncomfortable with that activity? So you have to visualize the meta rules. And the meta rules are beyond our English knowledge, right? That's why you have to consider that learning styles. We have here this diagram where the toy plays the inherent rules. The activity of play is going to involve inherent rules and meta rules. And the full activity called game is going to involve system rules, meta rules, and inherent rules per se. Okay? As I was telling you, just to be so short here in meta rules of play, one more time, you have to consider the context, the personal situation of each student, communication, if they are really communicating each other or trying to communicate each other during the activity, and the social factor. How is their behavior? If they are really enjoying this or not. What I am going to do with these meta rules, or if they appear like a shy student that starts to cry because he just feels uncomfortable during the activity. What I'm going to do as teacher. Those are the meta rules, right? So as I was telling you, don't forget to consider during your pre-designed gamification or game-based learning lesson to apply leaderboards to motivate the students to improve, badges, which are they could be some awards that you give them, right, every time that they win an activity, and some rewards. Why not? I'm gonna give you a chocolate if you achieve this new lesson, or I'm gonna give you a candy or a cookie. I don't know, something like that to give them more motivation. Okay. But during these two strategies, how are you going to know if they are, if you are like developing them correctly? Well, you have to apply observation. okay, between your students. One more time. Identify their attitude. If they are really enjoying the lesson, if they are really being part of the activity, and if they really have that desire to continue learning. That's how you are gonna know if it's correct or not. That's the student's attitude is the thing that, well, the factor that guarantees if everything is going well with them. But at the same time, don't forget, they need to be attached to your planning lesson. To your lesson. Okay. Language proficiency, of course, you're gonna give them feedback, like in every lesson, right? In every exam that is a serious part of a class, you are gonna identify if they are improving or not. You are gonna be like, oh yeah, of course, I can notice that they are speaking better. They have better writings. Excellent. I'm gonna continue in this way. I told you the assessment is very important. I know it's the boring part of a class, of a course, but we must apply it to know if the students are really improving. Adaptation. Adaptation, from a point of view, I consider that you have to identify the meta rules. Why the meta rules? Because if you identify that a student is starting to feel uncomfortable or to lose confidence speaking English, you have to adjust that activity according to those meta rules that you observe during the class. Right? So once you adapt that observation and start to improve that lesson, you are gonna improve at the same time the activity that you already have assigned. So in conclusion, if you want to apply gamification and game-based learning, identify the material, the tools, the activities that you will involve in, right? If it's gonna be just physical with your own materials, your own objects, your own toys. If you want to apply technology, how are you gonna apply it? Right? The first thing, always the more important element in our English classroom is the students. They are the most important. So you have to identify, one more time I insist, their personality. Who is shy, who is outgoing, okay? Who wants to continue improving, who's the leader. So at the same time, you will know which application, which material is the best for them, or how you can adjust each tool for them and continue increasing the motivation in each student. Don't forget that interactive simulations are important, right? If you are going to apply technology. But at the same time, you have to focus all the time those simulations to the objectives of your plans. All the time. I insist with that because you can have an incredible idea, an incredible project of an English activity. But if you are ignoring the goals of the class or the planning, probably it's not like the correct way to apply it. And finally, classroom competitions. In these two strategies, gamification and game-based learning, you are going to apply these tournaments all the time. But remember, they must be fun for students. If you are starting to identify a student that is done with this activity, that gets bored, try to know more about him or her, to know how to engage them, or again, okay, one more time to recover his or her motivation. So that's everything that I can share with you, teachers, students. I really hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. I tried to to do an abstract because it's a lot of information. I have been working as teacher for the last 5 years, and it's a very short period of time in comparison with most of you. But if you really love your job and what you do, you start to innovate and to search for more. And so I invite you to do the same, to research, to search in what another countries are doing, not only in Mexico, search beyond your own country and what they are doing right now to increase the engagement with students. Because in Mexico right now, we are thinking just in English. But in other countries like Switzerland, they are already thinking in 5 languages per student. So, can you imagine that? So I invite you to continue studying, to continue researching, to improve yourself as teacher, and to improve your own class. Thank you so much.